Plant health is fundamental to every farm. Regardless of the enterprise you are running, we need to make sure we have healthy plants. And I'm really passionate about having healthy plants because we get so many benefits from it. We can reduce our disease pressure. If we have healthy plants, we can reduce our insect pressure, and we can also increase yields, obviously. And so I'm going to talk about basically two ways that we increase plant health, and perhaps towards the end, what doesn't actually induce plant health. If you don't know who I am, I'm Till Simmons. I run Agresol and this YouTube channel, Agriculture Explained. I help farmers go from a conventional way of farming to a more robust, healthier for our plants and for us way of farming, using practices that we find in regenerative agriculture and other practices so that we can make the best outcomes possible. If you want to work with us, specifically for this video, implementing different strategies to improve plant health, we work with Australian growers. So if you want to work with us, go to our website at agresol.com.au. There you'll find a general consultation form, fill that out and we'll get back to you. Otherwise, there's also our Building Soil Health 9-day program. Cool. All right, so plant health. The first thing we need to do to improve plant health is, it's pretty obvious, and it's nutrition. Nutrition makes up basically the fundamentals of a healthy plant. I don't need to convince you on that because it's pretty obvious, and we learn all of that in uni and ag school, whatever you go to. But it's really when we get into the depths of plant nutrition that we truly find how we can increase plant health. And so with nutrition, we've got to make sure that everything is in adequate supply. So we have enough levels of everything. And this is not only just NPK, but also all our trace minerals, all our macros, every nutrient that the plant requires is needed. And so the reason why everything is required in adequate levels is because we have a thing called a law of minimums. And so say we have an iron deficiency, or iron is the lowest of all our nutrients, our plant health is going to be capped at the lowest nutrients. So say iron again. If that is at half the amount that it should be, doesn't matter what everything else is, as iron will be the limiting factor for our plants. So making sure that we can accurately test the nutritional state of our plant, and that's most efficient with a SAP analysis. So a lot of the times growers use a soil analysis at the start of the growing season. That's good, but it doesn't give you the full picture of the plant. A SAP analysis does a much better job, and this is not a tissue analysis, this is a SAP analysis, so it looks at the SAP. It does a much better job of displaying what the plant is actually picking up right there and then. Now, I learned a lot of this from John Kempf, so none of this is my own research, but looking at others and what they've been doing. And so he's big into SAP analysis. I would highly recommend checking more of his content out. But really, we need to monitor our plants and their nutritional levels, ideally through SAP analysis and over the growing season. And then what we've got to do, if our soils aren't supplying that nutrition at the start, or when we starting regenerating our farms, we want to slowly supply the nutrition, because there's no point in starving our plants just because we don't want to apply a bit of fertiliser. If it's deficient in iron, then apply iron, and if there's a significant advantage to that, there's reasons for applying that nutrient. So it's pretty easy, the application of nutrients. We all do it as farmers. It can be either as a foliar spray. Foliar sprays are better for applying trace minerals, where you don't actually need that much across a paddock, but you do need it. And that's the thing too with these trace minerals. You don't need much. You just need a small amount, but that small amount does massive things for our plants. Now, the effect of plant nutrition is that firstly allows for larger yield, so a healthier plant will yield more. But it also allows the plants to fight off diseases. So there's one book that I really like. It's called Mineral Nutrition and Plant Diseases. I'd highly recommend everyone getting this book if you're passionate about it. It's about $160, so it's not cheap, but definitely worth the information on it. It basically goes through how every plant nutrient affects its tolerance to disease. And so in short of that book, if you have adequate nutrition across your whole plant, you're basically resistant to disease. And the same goes with insects. If your plant is at a particular health and nutritional status, then your plant should become almost 100% resistant to insect attacks. Now, it is important to know you're probably not going to get there with your first application of whatever, and it does require aspects of our second aspect of plant health. So it's just important to keep that in mind. So some big reasons why nutrition allows for plant health is that it allows the plant to adequately produce these secondary plant metabolites, which can act as defense mechanisms against diseases. It can also make sure that the plant is able to build physical barriers against invading pathogens. So calcium, for example, is used in the cell wall lining. When we have adequate calcium in our roots, the plant can become resistant to Phytophthora root rot. And so just by applying, not just by applying, but by applying calcium to our plants, it can increase the ability for it to basically prevent Phytophthora from invading the roots. Cool, so first one, nutrition. If we have nutrition, that's the first half of making sure we get healthy plants. The next part is the microbiome of the plant. Now, this is equally as important as nutrition, and potentially even more important sometimes, as our microbes can supply nutrition. So with that, I guess the first point is that they can supply nutrition, but that's not really how it affects plant health. The most important thing about the microbiome is that the microbes on the plant can actually fight off disease and supply the plant with disease-fighting compounds and mechanisms. So an example of this is mycorrhizal fungi. What they'll do is they'll colonize the roots of our plants. And so, for example, if the mycorrhizal fungi are colonizing our plant roots and Phytophthora root rot comes along, the mycorrhizal fungi are already filling in the spots that the Phytophthora root rot could invade into. And so by the mycorrhizal fungi doing that, it basically prevents another barrier to prevent Phytophthora root rot getting into the roots. And so it acts as a safety barrier or a defense mechanism. It also makes sense from the point of view of symbiotic relationships, because if the host of the plant dies, that say you're a microbe and you require this plant to live, you're not going to allow anything else to attack this plant and kill it, because then you die too. And so it's in the best interest of the mycorrhizal fungi, or anything that benefits from the plant living in a symbiotic relationship. It's in their best interest to keep the plant alive and make it healthy so they can supply even more benefits of whatever it's gaining from the plant. And so that's one example, mycorrhizal fungi filling in the gaps on the roots to prevent Phytophthora root rot getting in. There's a few others. So the microbiome isn't just the roots, which is the rhizosphere. It also covers the rest of the plant too. So on the leaves, on the fruit, all of that. If we have a really good microbiome on our whole plant, all those microbes will be working with the plant to fight off disease. Now, this is probably the more tricky one to maintain, as you know, nutrition application is quite easy. Microbes are a lot harder because we have to firstly make sure that they're there, and secondly, we want to make sure that we're doing agricultural practices that aren't killing our microbiome. So to make sure that they're there, what we can do, and it's a very easy thing to do on our farms, is applying an inoculant to our seeds. And so that's very simple. You just get an inoculant. There's one product that I really like called Biocast. It's a vermiculture concentrate. You apply it to your seeds. It signals to microbes to come inoculate your or colonize your seed, and it also has a bunch of different microbes in that too, to give that plant, to cover the whole plant in microbes. So that's one. There's a couple of others that you can get. Also supplying some energy sources to that, so like molasses in that inoculant, and you can supply your nutrition through that too. So that's a really good way to get your microbiome started on your seeds. Also sourcing really good seeds from different companies that use regenerative practices and that have healthy soil, because remember, a lot of our microbes will be coming from our soil. The soil, there's microbes all through our soil. When you put your seed in, they're going to be coming in contact with the seed and then grow, get all the microbes covering that plant. That's how you get them there in the first place. The other thing is that you don't want to be killing off your microbes, so being really careful with the herbicide, fungicide, insecticide applications that we make, or even actually the fertiliser applications we make. If the application is pretty much too harsh, it can hurt our microbiome. And of course, making sure that we're not destroying our microbiome in our soil. So that's things like tillage. Tillage is very destructive for our microbiome. Reducing that, going to a no-till system is very beneficial to maintaining the microbiome in our soil and hence for our plants. Another thing that's really important to mention is that when we apply fungicides, bactericides, and all these other sides, that's not plant health. That's just getting rid of a symptom of plant health. And so if we have sick plants and they're getting infected by rust or whatever, applying a fungicide isn't causing our plants to get any healthier. That's just getting rid of the symptom of the actual problem, which is sick plants, which is either inadequate nutrition or a poor microbiome. And so what we do is that we look at these two things and we go, let's improve them before we actually get the symptoms of the problem. And so then we don't need to be applying fungicides and all these other things. They get costly and then you have to go out and apply them. We simply just make sure we have the plant healthy to begin with, so we don't have to be applying those. I think that's a really important note because a lot of, agronomy is solving these, or trying to fix these symptoms rather than fixing the problem. And although a lot of agronomy is focused around nutrition, a lot of the times we're basing it off soil analysis or inaccurate results, and we don't really pay attention too much to our microbiome, which is half of the puzzle. Cool, so there you have it. They're the two things that can increase our plant health. They are making sure we have adequate nutrition and having a really robust biology covering our plants. So if you want to implement some of these things onto your farm, come work with us. We can get you started. We can implement different plans and strategies onto your farm to build plant health, to reduce applications of pesticides, fungicides, bactericides, all these things that we're applying to get rid of disease. We can pretty much prevent that by focusing on plant health. Cool, so if you like that, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Cheers.